Hello, friends. Welcome back to the Wise Practice Podcast. I am thrilled to have you here. So, over the next few weeks, we're going to be doing something really fun with the podcast. We've already kind of been doing a little bit of it, but just some live consulting with practice owners. We're going to answer your burning questions surrounding private practice. That could be from everything to being a solo practice owner to a group practice owner and all that's in between with that, from money to managing team members, to doing branding, mission, values. We're covering it all. So we're going to be bringing this to you live consulting here on the podcast. And I brought in a few different people from the Wise Practice membership community to share their experiences, their stories, and ask their questions. And speaking of the Wise Practice community, I want to let you in on a very limited time opportunity. As you know, in the past, when I've had the Wise Practice membership community, I've only opened the doors during certain times of the year. And even though that's great, I started feeling like I want y'all to join anytime. So now you can join the Wise Practice community anytime. But over the next few weeks, I'm going to be sharing a lot more with you about what that is and what it looks like. But because I love this community so much and I want as many faith-based practice centers to be involved, I am offering a special deal from November 12th to 14th. We're going to open the doors for only 89 cents for your first month. Yes, you heard me. 89 cents for your first month. This is going to give you the opportunity to understand the community, see the ins and outs before you have to make more of a commitment to it. So for less than $1, you get to try it out. Inside the community, we have weekly live teachings on topics related to private practice. I personally teach those along with the rest of the consultants at Wise Practice. So whether you're just starting out or you're scaling your group, we have everything here for you. We have expert guests, live Q&A sessions, small group meetups for encouragement. We have accountability groups every other week with people in your same phase of practice. We have paperwork that you can go in and access, and that's everything from handbooks to interviewing to disclosure statements and all that in between. So you can grab that, edit it for your own practice. But the most important thing that I think as part of the community is it's a space where other Christian practice owners gather and support each other. You no longer have to feel alone as a faith-based practice owner. So if you're listening to this podcast, that tells me that you love the content that I bring. You love learning about growing your faith-based practice. I can tell you, you're going to love being a part of the Wise Practice membership community. You will get deeper connection, accountability, and practical steps to help you grow your practice. You don't have to do it alone. So the Wise Practice community is where you're going to be supported, challenged, and encouraged as a practice owner and follower of Christ. So remember, mark your calendar, November 12th through the 14th, only 89 cents for your first month. I would be thrilled for you to join, and I would be seeing you live during our Zoom meetings. So I think that's so much fun. So we have a Wise Practice member here with us today. It is Brittany Osborne, and her question for the podcast is about the structure of your group practice and the different ways we can do a group practice. So if you've ever considered even a little bit of what would a group practice look like and you're not really sure, there are so many different ways to set that up. So make sure that you stay tuned because we're going to jump right in with the different ways to set up a group practice. Welcome back to the Wise Practice Podcast, and we'll be doing some live coaching consulting today. Excited to introduce you to Brittany Osborne. She specializes in helping kids, teens, adults navigate ADHD, anxiety, and OCD with practical tools, compassionate care at her practice based in Marietta, Georgia. Brittany works with clients ages 8 and up to improve emotional regulation, build healthy systems at home, and reduce the overwhelm that keeps them stuck. She also offers workshops and group programs to create connection and growth outside of the traditional one-on-one session and hopes to grow into a known and trusted provider in the area. Brittany, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah. Well, why don't we kind of start out with you sharing a little bit more about yourself? How long have you had your practice? And tell us a little bit about your family, just so we kind of get to know you a little more.
Yeah. Well, I am in Marietta. I have my practice I've been working at for maybe 3.5 years. I was at a group practice before that, community mental health before that. So I feel like I've done a lot before settling into private practice. Outside of that, I have 3 girls, so I'm a girl mom. I like cooking for them and everybody, like
Oh.
reading, all that stuff. So, but my
Mm.
kids are younger, so I am also kind of in the little kid years.
Yeah, what ages are they?
2, 5, and 8.
Woo. Yeah, mine are 9 and 12, so there's a different season coming for the better and the worse.
Right, right.
So great. What do you like to cook? Your favorites?
I like to cook like for a crowd. Like my
Mm.
favorite thing is like to cook for a lot of people and like have people in my kitchen. It's one of my favorite
Oh,
things.
well, I'll call you when I'm in Marietta. I'll
You
bring all
should.
my friends.
Yeah, there you go.
That's great. Okay. Awesome. So what's your question for me today?
Okay, so, you know, mentioning my kids, I feel like we are ending the season of having kids, which was about an 8-year season of me either building up my caseload to go on maternity or weaning off my caseload to go on maternity leave or building it back up. And I feel like I just was in that rhythm for about 8 years. And now I feel like I can look ahead and make my business what I actually want it to be instead of what I need it to be.
Mm.
Um, so a little bit of backstory. The baby, my youngest, she when she was about 6 months old, we figured out she had food allergies, allergic to peanuts and eggs. And of course, it's like terrifying, right? Figuring that out. And then also the trajectory of like, what do I do? What does this mean? What am I like? Just it was so confusing. And then the internet tells you like a million different things that are all conflicting on what to do and where to go. Should you expose them to peanuts? Should you avoid the peanuts? Should you do shots? Should you have a special diet? It was so confusing and overwhelming. And I found the specialty food allergy clinic that was so wonderful. They had like nurses and doctors and they did research. And I found so much comfort going there because I'm just like, I felt taken care of. I knew that they would know the answers to my questions and that we would just be taken care of. And it was a kind of an aha moment for me because I'm like, I want to do this for other people, like getting diagnoses of like ADHD or like I know my kid has anxiety, or I'm just now realizing that my whole life, all these patterns are actually OCD can be really terrifying and overwhelming. And if you Google it, like it doesn't help. I feel like it's even more overwhelming and terrifying sometimes. So I think my question is how do I go about this? Because I'm realizing as a solo practitioner, I can't provide all those services myself. I really want a team to be able to build this service for people and families. So, setting up my business for hiring therapists, but also coaches and maybe like OT, which would be another therapist, or other modalities that would kind of help create this business model that I'm looking at.
Hmm. Sure. Loaded question, but a good one. So I love, first of all, your story of what it means to you. So thank you for sharing that. And you will be holding on to that as you grow your
Mhm.
practice. Growing a group practice is one of the hardest things you'll do. I've now learned that I need to say that every single time because it's really difficult, but it definitely can be done. Um, and I've seen lots of people do it lots of different ways. So I think a big part of it is you've already set up your practice with some of the main components. So you're already ahead. Like you already have an LLC, right?
Mhm.
You
Yes.
already have a account for your banking connected to your
Mhm.
LLC, and you already have a space. You already have liability insurance. So you already have some things in place. So that's really great. Also making sure that the name of your practice is something that you can grow with.
Mhm.
And when you make changes and start something, first of all, try to set a really good foundation so that you don't have to change things along the way. But
Mhm.
also, it's okay to change things along the way. But if you're going to change something, change it sooner rather than later because once you start hiring, now you're changing it for other people and it gets more complicated.
Right.
So what is the name of your practice?
It's Oak Leaf Counseling Services.
Okay. I love it. It's beautiful. So when you think about your vision of what it would look like, do you feel like Oakleaf Counseling Services encompasses what you're doing?
I feel like it can. Like initially, I chose that name and not my own name because I wanted to leave room for growing and doing other services that would be counseling that maybe not might not be specifically therapy.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I could make it work. Maybe with a
Yeah,
good tagline too.
definitely. I think you can too. And, along the way, you could always update it to something very similar. It could be Oakleaf Wellness or Oakleaf, services or whatever it's going to be. Okay,
Hmm.
that's all really great. So then we're looking at the differences between a 1099 and W-2 and which do you set it up as. And I could see this going lots of ways and we can kind of dive into this. It in the state of Georgia, there are some rules surrounding who you can employ with different modalities. Um, so for example, I cannot hire a medication provider to work at my practice as a W-2 employee because the owner does not have the ability to write scripts. So if I
Okay.
were to, and I got this from the medical board, now this was years ago, but so because I was looking at hiring a psychiatrist. So he
Hmm.
said, unless you're going to give the psychiatrist at least 50% of your business, you cannot employ someone to prescribe meds. I
Okay.
don't know how that works for other modalities like OT or things like that. You'd have to ask. But to me, it just makes more sense with these additional modalities to be a 1099 based model because you're hiring them to come in to provide a service for the people at your practice. So it would make a lot of sense if you had an OT person come in 2 days a week to provide OT for your clients, but then they worked somewhere else part time, where they're providing contract work.
Hmm.
So it's something to
That
think
makes
about. Yeah. Now with your therapists, I think you could consider either model and we can kind of walk through what each one looks like and which one might be the best fit for you. Would that be helpful?
Yeah, I think so. Uh, Is there, and we might answer this in a minute, but would it be weird to have both W-2 employees and 1099? Does that
Most of the
complicate things for myself?
Yeah, and you can ask an accountant about that. Most of the time I would say yes, but you're providing something totally different. So your W-2s, if you were to go with W-2 therapists, they would be employed by the business, working full time, that kind of a thing.
Mhm.
And you are overtly supervising. I mean, you're supervising them, and I don't mean clinically. I mean overseeing their work as a director, and that's your modality. So that would make some sense that you would treat them like employees. You're telling them directly what to do, how to do their work. But with an OT, you don't have experience in that. You don't understand it. I mean, you do, but you don't. And so it's not like you're going to be telling them how to do their job. You're going to say, hey, I've got these clients I want to refer to you. Can you come in and offer this work? And they would come use your space and offer that work. So that's a little bit more of a traditional 1099 model. The thing that gets confusing, I think, is that a lot of therapists hire 1099s to work at their practice, but they treat them like W-2s. So then it's like, well, what's going on here? 1099s tend to work at different places. Just like when you hire a painter to paint at your house, they have the expertise of painting, they bring all their own stuff to paint. It's like you don't know what kind of EHR they would need. Like they're going to have their own way that they do their notes. You're not going to look at those notes. But with your therapists, you know exactly what they need. You're going to be looking at their notes, making sure they're doing good clinical work, or maybe you have a supervisor that would be doing that, a clinical supervisor. So they're kind of two different things. So like your painter comes to your house, they bring their own paint, they bring their own ladder. They come whenever they want to come and you say, "Hey, you're the expert at painting this house. I can't do it." And they come in and do it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. So it would make sense to even separate those two because they're completely different services of like an OT or a coach. I would treat them differently no matter what because
Yeah.
not my modality.
Correct. Another thing you could consider is more like a collective. So maybe Oak Leaf Counseling Services is its own entity, and maybe one day you own a building and you own the whole thing, and you've got 10 offices and maybe 5 therapists are there seeing clients using half the space. And then you rent out the other offices to other people with different specialties, modalities. They have their own business, they rent their own space and do their own thing, and they just pay you for the space. If you wanted to have it completely separate, which
So would they like, so like referrals and all of that would not be through Oakleaf?
correct.
Okay.
They'd get their own referrals, do their own thing. And one of the reasons, now this is a little bit different, but I've always leaned that way because I've been looking to hire someone for medication.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some rules about you can't refer someone to someone and get a kickback for it.
Mm-hmm.
That's like an unethical practice. So if you really thought about it, if I were to have a medication provider come in and I hire them as a 1099, and let's say I get it's a 60-40 split, I technically am making something off of referring to that person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So do I think that someone's going to come after me? Probably not. And it probably would be okay. But to me, I just don't even want to get close to that. And especially because they're doing a practice that's totally not what I do anyway. And I don't really have a lot of experience in understanding it. I feel like the safer thing is, hey, you pay me this rent and you have this space. Now, naturally, we are going to cross refer because we're in the same office and we want to care well for people. So you technically could give it a name and call it a collective, and it's not necessarily a organized business entity. It's just kind of, we are this, like,
Mm-hmm.
in this community.
Okay. So it would basically be like a landlord kind of person, but you are creating a little world of people that you want to be there.
That's right.
Work
That's right.
together.
And you see people do this in private practice. Like they go out and buy an office space of 5 offices, and then they just say, hey, any therapists want to rent here? Therapists
Mm-hmm.
make their own businesses, they go rent the space, and then they all just refer to one another and get help. And that's actually how I started. I was out in Colorado and we called ourselves Mountain View, but we weren't really technically a business. And we did create a website that was like Mountain View Counseling, but we
Mm-hmm.
all had our own LLCs and we just shared space and cross referred. There were about 5 of us.
Okay.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So,
Is there any downside to that?
well, you don't make money. I mean, you make
Yeah.
some money, right? At least you're renting out your
Yeah.
space. And look, investing in real estate, that's it. That's a good idea. It's something that you'll have in retirement and everything. And they're paying off your rent. They're paying your mortgage. So that's really
Yeah.
great. They will refer back and forth to you, but some people don't like that because they don't get a kickback. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? They're not making a financial benefit. And I guess you're giving them clients and they're finding out about it through you. But
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the easier way to do it.
Sounds like tax wise, it would be more simple.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely the simpler way to do things
Okay.
than, I mean, with 1099s, you have to create contracts, have attorneys review those. We have some of that in wise practice, but especially if you were to do a contract with someone that has a entity or an organization that's very different than what you do, you'd have to specialize it to each one. And that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of complicated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Makes sense.
Hmm. All right. So then when we go back to you hiring therapists and looking at what you want, um, looking at the different models is really important. And I think the model that you choose can also indicate your branding, your purpose, your mission,
Mm-hmm.
So a 1099 model, like I said, you're hiring another business. So this person would have the therapist needs to have their own LLC
Mm-hmm.
and their own liability insurance, their own things, and they come into your office and provide a counseling service to the clients that you give to them. So you're referring the clients to them. And usually there's some kind of split that's involved there. 60/40 is pretty standard. Some people will do 50/50. If you're doing 70/30, you're losing money. Don't do it. Okay.
Okay.
Um, and you have less say over the work they do. Like, you can't say use this kind of treatment, or I recommend that you tell the client this. Like, no, they get to decide how they're going to do their treatment. They technically decide when they come to work, what they wear to work, just like the painter decides, I'm going to show up at your house at 10 o'clock on Tuesday. You have to be okay with that.
Mhm.
Now, because you have office space, it's only available at certain times. I think you certainly can say, here's your block of time.
Mhm.
But they get to decide when they see clients during that time.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's a little bit more independence. Now, that also being said, a lot of people will say to me, well, I don't want to do a W-2 because I have to have too much oversight and I want them to be more independent. I want to manage them. You can create a W-2 practice in such a way that you're not constantly managing your team, you know,
Mm.
and people will say, I don't want to deal with all my time being sucked up by that. Again, as you grow, you set up a leadership structure so that the other people are managing the team, you know.
Mhm.
So anyway, a W-2 practice, you employ them. You tell them when to come to work. You tell them what the policies of your practice are, the procedures of how you do things, and they come in and they do the work and they leave. You provide the oversight that they need to do their work. So yes, you have more control and structure in your place of work. I started as a 1099 model because that's what everybody else was doing. That's what my coach was doing, and I didn't know anything else. And once that started, I realized that we were not as connected as I wanted to be.
Mhm.
Like everybody was kind of doing their own thing and didn't want to share things. This is my own business. And so I didn't like that. Also, you can't force people to do things as a 1099. So, and I know that sounded kind of bad to say force, but I wanted everyone to come to staff meeting. It's important to me that we're spending time together every other week, talking through what's going on in the practice, encouraging each other, that building that community. You can't make a 1099 do that. And so I was not enjoying that aspect of it. I also realized that as a private practice owner, I wished that there had been a place to have health insurance and retirement and all those things. Well, you can't offer that as a 1099 practice. And so I wanted to have a place that was more community focused and longevity of therapists and being able to take time off and get paid for it, because that's what I hated about running a private practice is you take that time off and you're stressed of being off because you're not making any money. So
Mhm.
now I have a group practice where not only they get paid time off, which the paid time off's not as high as if they were seeing clients, but it's better than nothing. But now I can take time off and still get paid too because I run the practice. So that's a really nice gift for me. And just on as a sidebar, you do tend to see that W-2 based practices make greater income and profit margins than 1099s.
I'm sure there's less turnover.
Less
And
turnover indeed.
yeah. So it was harder for you to kind of create the culture you wanted with
Mm-hmm.
1099s. And you
Mm-hmm.
found that a lot better in W2s.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, speaking of turnover, at the same time that was happening, a dear friend of mine in another state had a practice of about 12 to 14 therapists, and she could not get past that number. Like every time it was like someone was leaving, someone was doing their own thing. And so she made the transition around the same time I did. And I can't say exactly how many therapists she has now, but it's like 50 plus.
Mhm.
So she was able to start growing after that.
Yeah. Because people are looking for the benefits and the retirement.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So what other questions do you have based on kind of what I shared about those two models?
I think this is interesting because it seems like I can kind of do a couple different things. It doesn't have to be like just one, like just doing 1099s or just doing W2s. But if I'm wanting this to be kind of like a the collective part was very intriguing. I didn't ever consider that. Um, do you feel like the collective part would be financially viable if you didn't own the building?
Not particularly.
Okay.
I mean, you certainly would refer back and forth. Yeah, so maybe they would send some clients your way. Um, but yeah, you're not really making any money off of them.
Yeah, it would just be you have everybody together.
hmm But if you had a group practice of
Mhm.
therapists along with that, I could see a little more beneficial because you couldn't take on more clients. You can only take on so many.
Right.
Mhm.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Another important thing for you to just be aware of with group practice, if money is a goal, which for most of us, it's at least some kind of a goal, you
Mhm.
need to get to 4 to 5 therapists to make it where you're really benefiting financially.
Mhm.
So a lot of
Mhm.
people start a group practice and yeah, you might make something off of 1 or 2 therapists, but then they get frustrated. They've put all this work in. I've hired these people and I don't see a difference and they're still having to see clients. Usually you got to get to 4 to 5 before you can start decreasing the number of clients that you see. So
Mhm.
that phase of growing it and working on the business, but still having a full caseload, it's a lot.
Mhm.
It's a lot, but boy, it's so cool when you start making those transitions and you walk into your office and other therapists are seeing clients and you have greater impact. It's neat.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. And, I've really enjoyed so much about solo private practice. But I definitely miss that part of group practice is even just having like a warm body on the other side of the wall, that I know someone else is there. And even if we can't collaborate all the time, I really do miss that. So that's a
Mhm.
motivation too.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, wonderful. Any other thoughts, questions that you have about your kind of setup and what you're looking at?
I don't think so. It's a lot to think about. But it definitely is getting the gears running in my head about what the next step is.
That's great. That's great. And then in the state of Georgia, are you a clinical supervisor?
No.
Okay, that's
I've
that's totally
thought
fine.
about it. Thought about a lot of things, but I
Well,
haven't done that.
yeah, that's okay. And you can play both roles because the state of Georgia wants you to have a clinical supervisor and a director, and you certainly
Mhm.
can be both of those, but they frown upon it.
Right.
So it is actually more advantageous to you to not be a clinical supervisor,
Mhm.
and to try to hire a clinical supervisor as an early hire,
Okay.
especially if you do a W-2 model, because then you'll have it in-house. A 1099, it's a little bit easier to be like, hey, you have to find your own outside supervision.
Mhm.
Um, and then they just pay for it and do that all on their own.
Yeah, that makes sense.
hmm
I don't think I thought about hiring a clinical supervisor. That would make a lot of sense.
hmm Yeah. Yeah. We actually have 3, which is really great. Mhm.
Mhm. Yeah,
I
because
love
that
hiring associates.
yeah, that feels like too many hats for me. If I was the clinical director and a clinical supervisor, would be a big
Definitely. And I've seen people do it to start that way, but then, yeah, they usually end up getting burned out. But you
Mhm.
can see the conflict there. It's like someone might not want to talk about a bad clinical situation with their boss.
Right.
So this provides that space for that. And for me as the boss, I've really appreciated having multiple inputs as about employees and how they're doing and us being able to see things from different perspectives. Because yes, I am spending so much of my time focused on the business side. It's great to have someone else who's focused on the clinical and attending clinical trainings. Like our clinical director is about to attend a training on suicide prevention for 2 days so that she can really hone in on our suicide awareness policy.
Yeah. Yeah, just kinda spreading out, uh, not having to do everything,
That's
right?
right. That's
Yeah,
right.
neat.
So wonderful. Well, so you said you're going to be thinking a little bit more about the collective idea, thinking through some of
Mhm.
that. Is there anything else that's a takeaway for you?
Um, yeah, I mean, I think the associates, interns, fully licensed people, I'm gonna be thinking about that too, of, like, the mix that would be most beneficial to me at the beginning, especially. And then also kind of you shared about like going ahead and hire like the goal for 4 to 5, not like the goal for 1, which is,
That's right.
you might want to there's a tendency for me to be like, all right, I'm just going to focus on 1, but really diving in.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
Well, Brittany, I know you've been a part of the membership community for a little while now. Could
Mhm.
you share a little bit about why the Wise Practice membership community is important to you and what you gain from it?
Yes, it's been really, really helpful to have like one spot that I know I can go to really get all kinds of information on running a business, and especially, the um, camaraderie, I guess, that you have of being faith-based practices, gives me a lot of comfort, and I don't have to like weed through things in my brain like if I'm looking on a Facebook group. So I've really enjoyed kind of just having almost the security of like, well, I'll go here if I have this question. It's been really helpful.
Yeah, I've heard people say that, and some people utilize it just for that, just to
Hmm.
know they have a place. And sometimes you could be like, "Oh, well, I'm paying," at the time of the recording, it's $89 a month. It's like, well, I'm paying $89 a month for one question, but the truth is, one question could save you lots of money or make you lots of money. So yeah, but I appreciate that. And obviously, there's so much more with the resources and the courses and all that kind of stuff. But everybody kind of finds where they fit in and finds what works for them with their schedules. And I'm certainly really glad that you have found us.
Yes, thank you. I've really enjoyed it.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for your time today. Looking forward to hearing about your growth of your practice and excited for that.
Awesome. Thank you.